One thing that I've noticed about most vendors is our loyalty to the brand. We fight and we claw for every inch of space that we can get, even if it costs us our reputation or credibility. Over the past few years, I've gained some perspective in this business that might challenge the way you look at your competition. This is that nothing is permanent, there's room for everyone, your time will come, and you didn't invent the brand. Our job as vendors is to help the consumer and the retailer first. Let's talk about what I mean when I say nothing is permanent. I've walked into so many accounts after I've tried everything to convince the decision maker to try an idea, only to find out that they've given that win to somebody else. After years of having my heart broken, something started to reveal itself. Nothing in this business is forever. And I'm not even talking about displays or coolers. I've seen managers come and go. I've seen owners sell their entire businesses. I've seen stores burn to the ground. I've seen remodels happen. And most importantly, I've seen persistency and consistency change the hardest of hearts. What I'm saying is the no's and the yeses, they're all temporary. This business is a numbers game. You just keep running the play, stepping up to the plate, and taking your best swing. If you stay true to what is working for you, those tough customers will either move on or they'll come around one way or the other. A perfect example of this was when I was working in Oklahoma as a district sales manager. I had a small independent chain of stores who had a buyer that was left with a bad taste in his mouth from a third-party distributor that was there before we ended up taking over. When we showed up, I tried to talk him into partnering with us, and it was clear that we were going to have to prove ourselves and stay consistent with follow-up with this guy. 2 years passed, and I still had not made much progress despite visiting him over and over again and trying to show him the benefits of partnering with our brand. Then one day I got a call from my route sales rep in that territory. He was telling me that the buyer, who had owned this chain of stores for well over 3 decades, was finally selling his entire chain to an investment group. This investment group had worked with our brand in another state, and they knew the power of partnering with us and how we could help them grow their business. I sat down with them one time, and we ended up inking a deal and getting every single thing that we wanted across all stores. If I had been short-sighted, I could have given up on this account way too early. And I often wonder what would have happened had he never sold that business. I like to think that I could have eventually gotten through to him, but there's no way to really know, I guess. That's the beauty of our business. Your next win is always just around the corner, and that difficult retailer is always evolving and changing. You never really know where you'll find your next advocate or that great partnership is going to show up. I want to talk a little bit more about what I mean whenever I said there's room for everyone. Because I know we as vendors get territorial about our brands, and if we had it our way, we'd like 100% of the store to be all of our brands. But we don't live in this perfect world where it's likely to happen that way. Nor would we want this despite what we may tell ourselves. The number one thing a consumer wants is taste, and a close second is variety. And as I mentioned earlier, our number one goal as vendors should be to work to help the consumer and the retailer. So I've really started to take a different perspective, one that positions me as a professional and a consultant rather than the dreaded salesman. I know that large brands are always talking market share. They're reading Nielsen or IRI data or whatever hot metric reporting system is coming down the pipe. But whenever you're looking for that decision maker to give you any type of space, we want to make sure that the overall market is telling you that this is a good idea. The next step would be to look at our unique market from a local level. And the very last step is going to be to get more granular and make sure that the demographic within the store is telling you this is what they want. You can do this in a number of ways, but the easiest way to do this at store level is by looking back on your inventory and checking against trends that will show you what you're selling the most of and what you're selling the least of. Plus, you should just be doing inventory so that you can forecast each order for the store properly. For everyday, all the time placements like your main cold and your warm, it's important to calculate market share. Market share is basically what your consumer is telling you what they want on a day-to-day basis. These numbers can be found through companies like IRI and Nielsen like we mentioned before. And any decision maker in the store would be smart to pay attention to these numbers no matter what. Keep in mind, the bigger the store and the faster moving the market is, They may not always have time to be dialed into these numbers like you would be. So that's when you come in as a consultant. Now, I know I said everybody has room to eat, but there are a few things that I think are worth not backing down from regardless of share, and this is incremental space and positioning, meaning wherever you can find space that makes sense to the consumer and the store to get more visibility on your product, you should take it. We've talked on previous podcasts about how any space in the store maintained properly can help you grow sales and share. Positioning is a big part of this. I want you to think of any placement in the stores that are outside of our main placements as a billboard or a commercial. And you wouldn't put your billboard behind a tree or put a commercial in a time slot where nobody is watching. This is why placement is so important. If you want your display to work, you need to give it the best opportunity to make an impact in the store. This also means great presentation in addition to that prime location. But getting too comfortable with each placement that you have in store is going to get your heart broken. We started this show by saying that nothing is forever. You need to respect the decision maker's ability to change their mind whenever they want. And if there's a new brand that they want to market in store or an event that promotes a different brand and it makes more sense to put this up instead of yours, you have to be okay with letting it go for just a minute and know that your time will come around again where you can put that big stack right where your competitor is sitting right now. Now, we were just talking about market share and how it should be driving our decisions at the main placement. But here's another concept I want you to consider. Let's talk about in-store placements based on market share. Your decisions outside of the main placement should also be based on some type of market share. At least that's how I would convey it to my store manager. Here's some free consultation for all you store owners out there that are arguing with vendors. If I ran a store, all main placements would be based on Nielsen data, with 20% of my main space available for new items. I would run my displays and incremental space the exact same way. 80% would go to my brands that I knew customers were coming in to purchase, and that other 20% would be set aside for some new items or things that I needed to flush out of, break even on, or painfully take a loss on. This is just my small store strategy, and it's from the store owner's perspective, but I also want to help out those in large store. How do we share space in large stores so that everyone can eat? Number one, I think I can already read your mind. I bet you're saying, I really don't care if everybody eats. I want my space and screw everyone else. I used to have this exact same mindset, and this is a problem because you're thinking more like a salesman and less like a consultant. In large store, if you can plan ahead and make your move at strategic times, this positions you as a professional that has the best interests of the store in mind, and that's going to give you more leverage over the long run. Believe me, this is exactly what you want, even if you don't realize it right now. So before you go Napoleon on your competitors, think these things through. And also remember what happened to Napoleon. Is what your competitor doing making sense? Is it the right season for their product to be displayed? Is their brand part of a local or national event that is going on that's driving sales for the store? If it is, you can always start planning around when this event is going to be wrapped up and help with an exit strategy for the competitor's product. Then you can forecast for when you will put up your display in that space based off of your next event. So whenever I talk about event, I'm not necessarily talking about some wild, crazy event that's happening in town or some big national event like the Super Bowl. It can be something that you're promoting in store as well. So here's some good examples of ideas of when it would be a good time to promote. If you have a new product or some type of brand, if you have some type of line extension, or of course, if you have events that are sponsored by your brand, or any promotion or special on your brand that you're running in conjunction with the store. For example, a coupon, a price cut, a promotion. If you're Walmart, rollback for sure is a big one for them. Here's a few other things to consider. If you're walking the store and you notice that a space isn't being maintained by your competitor, for instance, if you see a display and you think to yourself, I wouldn't shop off this display, it's okay to bring this up to your decision maker. And if you can do better, it's your job to deliver. So put your money where your mouth is. This can also be said for if your product sells more. If you have proof that you sell more than your competitor, share that data and target the long-term sales drivers that make sense for the store. When I'm walking the front end of the store, first I'm looking for that person that can make decisions for long-term sales drivers like incremental coolers. Then I take a look at what's helping and what's hurting them. There are so many tools available to us to show a store manager what's working and what's not working. And you really aren't doing your job as a consultant if you see an opportunity to drive more sales and you don't say anything. The reality is these retailers are in their store so often that they can become blind to obvious sales drivers that are sitting right in front of them. Thank God they have us vendors, right? If you see an opportunity for a long-term sales driver like an incremental cooler or a permanent rack or a box that you can bring in, take time to put together a sales story. And in some instances, if you see a competitor that's not selling as much as you, show the store manager that data. The easiest way to lead a conversation is with facts and data. And the more granular that you can get and store level that you can get with this information, the stronger and more compelling that sales story is. If you can pull it, show the average monthly sales of your competitor and then show your monthly sales. If you're selling more, then it makes sense that you should have that spot, or at least some spot somewhere in the store. I personally like to come up with 3 options for them as far as placements go. Now, I understand that earlier I said that everyone can eat and there's space for all of us, but the reality is if your competitor is hurting your retailer's sales, it's your job to do something about that. But I don't want you to give up just yet. If you want to try a less aggressive approach, here's something that you can consider. In almost every account, there's dead space that's just not being used. It's our job as vendors to show the decision maker how to use as much space as they can to make as much money as possible, aka more sales. So if you see some dead space that can be used for a sales driver like a cooler or a display, just ask and see what happens. But be ready for the yes and make sure that you deliver on your idea. I said a little bit earlier in the podcast that your time will come. I want to expand on that a little bit more. In my early days as a vendor, I would walk into the store and see my competitor's display larger than life in the middle of the lobby and get furious. There would be some kind of event happening and then there would be this big display on the floor that had replaced mine. I would think to myself, but I share the numbers. We're the better brand that sells more. I should always have this space. Unfortunately, when there's an event, sometimes it's not about the numbers. It's about the store's business model and the consumer, which remember, this is our number one focus, helping out our retailers and the consumer. The reason my stuff was taken down was usually because another brand was sponsoring a national or local event, and this was taking priority over the numbers, which may sound counterintuitive, but this is just the way our business works sometimes. There's also instances where a brand will have new products, and this may take precedence over your consistent destination purchase brands. When you see this happen, don't get upset and keep telling yourself it's all temporary. Remember, our consumer will get bored of seeing the same thing over and over again, so it's actually kind of a good idea to switch it up every now and then. But this is just us talking about displays that change week in and week out. When I say nothing is permanent, I mean nothing is permanent. I've seen so much crazy stuff happen in this business. Coolers get swapped out or pulled, never to be seen again. Permanent racks get pulled and replaced. Managers move or get fired. As I mentioned earlier, owners of entire chains will just sell their pride and joy. There's instances where stores cease to exist or go out of business completely, mainly because they haven't listened to my consulting advice. And even me, I've changed. I've moved all over the place. I've seen tons of markets. And one thing that I noticed is that this industry and your market is continuing to evolve to meet the needs of its consumers. You need to be ready to change with it, or at least understand where it's headed. Stay calm in the understanding that if you don't like where your store is right now, or your territory is right now, this is all going to change over time anyways. So don't get too comfortable.